My name's Kathy Belov, I'm 35 and I'm a geneticist. So I study genes. So genes are DNA molecules that code for things like hair colour and eye colour. So these genes are different in different species, in different animals. And I look at these genes mainly in Australia's native animals like marsupials and monotremes. I think I was in the right place at the right time, in that over the past 10 years, Tasmanian devils have contracted a horrible disease known as devil facial tumour disease. What has been found quite recently is that this disease is actually a contagious cancer. So it's a really unique disease. And when I got involved, I was really curious to see why there isn't an immune response to these cells. When I was growing up, I had no idea what I wanted to do. My strengths were in the sciences, and perhaps there was something in the genes because my mother's a scientist and my father was an engineer. I did my degree at Macquarie University in the Department of Biological Sciences. My majors ended up being genetics and molecular biology, but I had no idea that I'd end up working on animals. After I finished honours, I was offered a job to study the genes of kangaroos. I actually found the genotyping work extremely boring, and I started to think, well, if this is all genetics is, I don't think it's for me. But my supervisor said there's this fellow up in Newcastle who believes marsupials have a primitive immune response. And I don't think that's right because, on the whole, marsupials are pretty healthy. And that's what got me hooked. So my job now is actually lecturing to veterinary science students, and the rest of my time doing research, where we study the genes of different species, from skinks to devils to platypuses to wallabies. We've done some work with the Australian Reptile Park. Quite often the zoos will introduce two different males to a female and then not know who fathered the babies. So we come in at that stage and we take a little ear biopsy, a little sample of tissue from the ear of the mother, of the two possible fathers and of the babies. And then we can come back to the lab and extract the DNA and work out who the father was. And that's important for the zoos because then they know who they can match up with that female next year, because you don't want to flood the gene pool with one particular male, or you don't want to accidentally mate those babies with their father in the following year. In terms of the lab work, the first thing we do is we extract the DNA from the piece of tissue that we've collected. We target a particular group of genes and sequence it to look at the different genetic code that makes up each of those genes and see how those sequences differ, to see what the variation is between different individuals. We definitely need lots of keen young people to come and join the field. Genetics is rapidly growing. There's huge opportunities now that we're moving into this genomics era for people to find jobs in genetics. So we're getting to the point where we're going to have a human genome sequence for babies. So there's going to be a huge demand for geneticists. So there's a lot of possibilities there. In terms of career paths, it's a really fun career to have. Tasmanian devils are just amazing animals. At first sight you may think, they're a bit horrible and they fight over their food, but when you get to know them, they're gorgeous. And particularly when you see the babies, which is the most exciting thing for us, when the zoos have mating success and we can go in and see these little young. They're definitely worth saving. And they're actually our largest remaining marsupial carnivore, and that in itself is quite a frightening prospect because we lost our largest marsupial carnivore quite recently. That's the Tasmanian tiger. So we can't let that happen to our devils. I love my job, and that even if I had all the money in the world, I'd still want to do the research. In many ways, my job is a hobby. Who else gets to go and play with devils in the mornings and then go and play in the lab in the afternoons? So it is a lot of fun.